Lenten season fish Friday continues. This time we've got that's a fillet of salmon that I cut up into maybe 1-inch sort of pieces, strips. Anyways, it still has the skin on, but I removed all the bones and everything else. Like I said, it's a fillet. You still need to go through it to make sure there are no bones in there. This is a sort of a take on of a newer recipe my mom makes with salmon, and she started making this 10-15 years ago or so, once she started to live, well, her and dad, the warm months they live in Canada. Salmon is plentiful here, so thus the recipe came about. And the uniqueness about this, it's a little bit different than your typical Caribbean stew fish. Now, I'm always on here talking about don't use the packaged stuff and the all-purpose seasoning and the Maggi and the Grace and all those different things, and I ain't calling name purposely. I'm just identifying the products which are out there. You see this? I am not a fan of using this, but in trying to keep kind of close to the recipe that Mom does, she uses this. What I like about it, while there's stuff in here we probably can't pronounce and we don't know and stuff like that, but I like the fact that it has ruku or uku, some of you call it that, the achote, in here. And if I had ruku, the liquid, I would have used it in here instead of this. Be mindful, the salt content in here will sort of need to be balanced, because you don't want to put too much salt and then add this. But we're going to season the fish first, and the seasoning is pretty simple. I've got sea salt, and you can use any salt that you like using. It may look like quite a bit of salt, but I'll be putting green peppers and onions and tomato and all those things in here, and we got to compensate for that. I've got some garlic, and that is just some chopped garlic, rough chopped. I've got some smoked paprika, fresh ground black pepper, and of course some Caribbean green seasoning. We don't want to go too heavy because I find this can overpower, and we really want to maintain just a teaspoon the sort of unique flavor of that salmon. Let's just go in tighter there so you can see what I did. We're going to give that a mix, and we're going to allow that to marinate for about 10 minutes, nothing more. Now, my fish has been cleaned with cool water and the juice of a lime. If you wanted to use lemon or a bit of vinegar, you can do that, but rinse it quickly, because we don't, that's an acid, and the acid will want to cook the fish. We don't want that happening. But we're going to give that a mix, like I said, and let that marinate 10-15 minutes, and then we'll proceed. I just realized I forgot another key component. I have scallions here. I have some bell pepper, tomato, the seasoning pack. But what I do have is the bottom parts, the white parts of the scallion, and a medium onion. And I'm going to add that in here as well. I totally forgot about that. So there we go. We have it all mixed up. That's going to sit for about 10-15 minutes. We'll also need some all-purpose flour, some vegetable oil, a bit of olive oil, and some tomato ketchup, along with a bit of water. I've got 2 cups of vegetable oil heating on a medium flame in my frying pan there. And what we need to do now is just plain old all-purpose flour. If you wanted to add salt and black pepper here, you can, but you really don't need that extra salt in your life. All you would do then is shake off the onion and lightly dust the pieces of salmon. And the reason for doing that, it's going to help create a crust. And when we create the sort of sauce, when we stew it, that sauce is going to not only thicken up because of the flour content in here, it's also, and I should be using one hand to, smarter than that, one hand to grab it and one hand to flour dust it. If some onions stuck to it, that's fine. But the other thing the flour is going to do is allow for that sauce to sort of adhere or stick to the pieces of salmon. So again, it's very simple. Shakey shake, toss it in there, and once your oil is up to temperature, medium heat, you're just going to toss them in there and let them fry off. And this is the sort of typical way, especially in Trinidad and Tobago, how we would make, whether we're making stew fish or curry fish, we'll always flour dust it and fry it first. Now I have another recipe with fish chunks, which is boneless pieces of fish, because I know a lot of people ain't able with the bones, where I don't flour dust it, I don't fry it first. If you're interested in that one, is a sort of a coconut based sauce. If you're interested in that recipe, drop a comment down below and I will sort all it out. Now once your oil is up to temperature, you'll just start adding the pieces of flour, seasoned and flour dusted fish to the pot. It won't take long, a couple minutes per side, and then you can take it out here. Got a beautiful color on it, and it didn't take long. As I said, I have a paper lined towel here where I'm just going to set them, because we've got to shift our attention to making the sort of tomato sauce where we'll dump these back in, because after all, we're eating this with rice, we're eating this with boiled green banana, cassava, yam, any sort of provision you like. Dumpling, if dumpling is your thing, I mean to say, handle that accordingly. And remember, about a week ago I shared that coconut rice. You see that? And the wedding right there, matrimony. I have my saucepan, well, it's a cast iron pan, heating on a medium flame. And remember the onions and other seasonings that we have in there. To that, we're gonna add the packaged mix in there, and we're gonna hit that a stir. Over here, we need a tablespoon of olive oil. To that, I'm gonna add my sweet pepper, and I'm using green bell pepper here, green sweet pepper. Any sort of color, any ones you have on hand, you can use it, along with everything that was in the bowl, the garlic, the onion. If you wanted to add some grated ginger, that would be nice. And I want you to add a cup of water in here and mix it around a bit. Yeah, need all of that in there. The whole idea is to soften this up, so I'm going to turn my heat down to low and let that soften up a bit. I'm going to hit that just a tiny bit more fresh ground black pepper. If you wanted to add a little scotch bonnet, any sort of spicy pepper you can. I'm going to hold off on doing so. It's been about 3 minutes. What I want to go in with is a bit of puree or tomato paste. That's concentrated tomato paste. That there is going to help build body and color, and it's going to, you know, by putting it now, it gets in contact with the hot oil, with the hot pan, and I'm going to move it around in a second, but that brings out the natural sugars out of that tomato. Sweetness, boy, sweetness. Now remember, that fish is pretty much cooked all the way through, so it would just be a matter of sort of dunking it into the sauce that we're creating here, and then just heating it back up, and you know, voila, we're done. But for now, let that go for another 3 minutes, because I really want the sugars from that tomato puree to caramelize. At this point, we're gonna add the water, give that a stir, and keeping with the whole tomato sort of theme and sweetness, we're gonna add some tomato ketchup in there. If you are diabetic and you don't want to add that tomato ketchup in there, by, you know, you're in control, so you can avoid that. But all we want to do now is bring that up to a boil, reduce it to a simmer, and cook it for about 3 minutes before we add the rest of the ingredients in here. As with the fish, I don't want the tomato, and this is why I purposely cut the tomato pieces really big. I want it to hold a shape, because I find that once it sucks up some of the flavor here, and if you wanted to add a bit more flavor, more of that fish, that salmon flavor, you can always use a tablespoon of the same oil that you use to fry the salmon instead of the olive oil. I'm trying to keep it a little bit more clean, but I'm going to give that a minute, and then I'm going to add the salmon pieces in there, stir everything, shut the stove off, and let the residual heat pull everything together. The key here is adding back the salmon and giving it about a minute or two, so that salmon flavor goes deep within. Sup, soldiers? Listen, if you enjoy this recipe, I'd really appreciate it if you hit subscribe and click that bell notification thing. If you've made the recipe, take a picture and send it to me email address down here. I mean, trying to tell people the email address, them butts will take the address and do all kind of thing with it. And tag me on Instagram at Caribbean Pod. I really appreciate you guys, and thanks for being in my kitchen with me today. Irie? It's been a minute and a half. You can see the tomato skin are starting to blister. These are Roma tomato. What I would recommend doing now is tasting that sauce. Make sure the salt is to your liking. You know, if you need to adjust it, if you wanted to add a bit of lemon or lime juice in here, you can. Once you're happy with all those steps that I just mentioned, you're going to start bringing the fish back and tucking it down into that sauce. I'm going to turn my heat down to medium low and being gentle because we don't want the fish to fall apart. We're just going to tuck it down in there, and then I'm going to go in with my spoon and I'm going to start basting it with that luscious sauce that we have on the bottom there. You know, and some of you will be asking, well, Chris, can I put some coconut milk in here? Yes, you can, but like I said, if you're interested in that other version recipe that I have, which includes coconut milk, hit me a comment down below and I'll get to it. Yeah, I just flipped them over. As I said, it's been a minute and a half, almost 2 minutes. I'm going to turn my stove off, and the final thing I like doing is a bit of scallion or green onion. Rosie the cat is excited for the salmon. Boy, you hear meow, meow. Okay, kitty cat. Chris here, CaribbeanPod.com. Always a pleasure having you all in the kitchen with me. Stewed salmon, a sort of a take on my mom's recipe and one of her newer. Oh, this is hot, man! One of her newer recipes. I hope you guys get an opportunity to make this one. It's a nice thing, you know. And again, that coconut rice. Don't sleep on that coconut rice, eh? Best thing in here. Irie, Lent, Fish Friday. Everybody happy. Cool out yourself. Move on.